Today was a victory for the vulnerable and the voiceless. Today in court, 3 former correctional officers for the jail that stands right here to my right admitted to the judge and our community that they beat to death Michael Tyree, a mentally ill inmate, a human being. They pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, to beating and killing Michael Tyree with conscious disregard for his life, conscious disregard for human life. These guards, who were sworn to protect our community as well as the inmates in their care, walked into a mentally ill man's cell at night and attacked him like predators. For close to 5 minutes, fellow inmates heard Michael's screams, heard his crying. They heard him begging for mercy. But there was no mercy on the night of August 26, 2015. No mercy. Afterward, Michael lay dead in a pool of vomit and feces. He'd lost up to half of the blood in his body through massive internal bleeding. His liver was severely lacerated and his spleen nearly torn in half. The forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy determined that the cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries that included a catastrophic abdominal injury. Do you know why Michael Tyree was in a jail cell? He was charged with a misdemeanor and was mentally ill and waiting a treatment facility bed somewhere in our county. Instead of focusing more on the gruesome details of Mr. Tyree's death, I'd like to focus for a moment on some of the reforms and positive light that came in the aftermath of this horrific murder, this horrific killing. Following the death of Michael Tyree, federal monitors were brought in to investigate Santa Clara County's jail operations. In addition, the Board of Supervisors convened a Blue Ribbon Commission on improving custody operations. The Office of Corrections and Law Enforcement Monitoring was established to provide independent monitoring of the county's corrections and law enforcement functions. Reforms adopted included increased training in crisis intervention, training on interacting with mentally ill inmates, body-worn cameras, and a revised inmate complaint reporting system. Perhaps a little ray of light emerged from Michael Tyree's night of darkness on August 26, 2015. I want to take a moment to explain the charge that the defendants pled guilty to today. As you know, in 2017, a jury convicted all 3 of these defendants of second-degree murder. The defendants challenged their murder convictions on appeal based on a new law that was retroactive and significantly changed the requirements for murder. So, in 2017, when we tried this case, there were 2 theories of murder that we argued. One was malice murder, the second was natural and probable consequences murder. Several years ago, the state legislature changed the requirements for murder and removed natural and probable consequences murder. And so when the appellate court looked at this case, the appellate court said the jury was instructed on 2 theories of murder. We don't know which theory or whether the jury convicted based on both theories. Therefore, we're reversing the conviction. However, the court found that there was plenty and sufficient evidence to find the defendants guilty of malice murder. And so the case came back to us and we prepared to retry the case. Then the defendants came forward and said they would plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter. They would admit, as they just did in court, that they killed or abetted the killing of Michael Tyree and that they did so with conscious disregard for human life, and that they would take the maximum sentence under law of 11 years, which is essentially the same amount of time that they would have served under a murder conviction. And so based upon that offer from the defense, as well as their admission in court, that they committed this act and they did it with conscious disregard for human life. We accepted that disposition. The defendants pled guilty and the case is concluded. And we brought some finality, some measure of justice to Michael Tyree's family, as well as our entire community.